Okay, thank you. Welcome to the Town of Barnstable Waterways Committee meeting for April the 25th, 2023. We have representing Town of Barnstable, Harbor Master Brian Taylor and Assistant Jay Horn and Administrative Assistant Eliza Lozon. Board members present are Greg Egan, Todd Volantis, Gary Tramick, and myself, Paul Everson. And let's go to the agenda. And before we even do the agenda, let me just read this. We have a note that tonight's meeting is being recorded and broadcast on Channel 18 and in accordance with Mass General Law 30A, Section 20. I must inquire whether anyone is taping this meeting, and if so, please to make themselves their presence known to the chair. Hearing none, we will go to the agenda. And first up is to act on the minutes of March the 28th meeting. Has anybody had a chance to review that?
I have.
Thank you, Peter. I'll entertain a motion to accept as written.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by Todd, second by Peter. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. That passes. Next, we have the notice of intent. Laurie Sidman, trustee, 185 Ocean View Ave, Katuitt. Map 33, parcel 16, applicant proposes to repair, maintain, and relocate the pier head in boat lifts. Due to shoreline accretion, pier lifts will be adjusted 25 feet seaward. The pier will extend 60 feet from the mean high water. This is continued from our February 28th, 2023 meeting. So I believe, do we have John O'Day?
I am here this evening, yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I did provide today sort of a memorandum that we've been working on. And great, you have it there, so maybe we can scroll through it together. Obviously, no one's had a lot of time to look at it. But it was maybe suggested at the February meeting that people have been studying these shorelines for a long time, and that it might be helpful to all of us to get some input from them about, obviously there's been significant changes in every direction out there, even in the last 20 years since this pier was built. So taking a step back and trying to get our arms around, what's been happening, what to expect in the future might give us a better sense of how these, repairs and could impact navigation, if at all. So we were consulting with Sustainable Coastal Solutions. Names have changed over the last 30, 40 years, but these are the people who have been studying, monitoring, permitting, maintaining all the work in this channel and Dead Neck and Sampson's and Katuitt shorelines since the 80s. And they were, very heavily involved in the permitting of the channel dredging, the 3 phases that occurred, beginning in 2017-18, and they were involved in the monitoring after the fact. So they had a lot of good background information, historically and even kind of current. One thing that I did want to point out was that as part of that channel dredging 2017 3-year program, there was a monitoring and mitigation plan that had been developed in 2014 as part of the permitting process, because there was uncertainty about how this dredging was going to impact the shorelines. And a series of transects were set up along the Katuitt shoreline and all the way across the channel and over to Sampson's. And they were monitoring, I think, for the first year or two quarterly, and then it spread out to eventually being an annual monitoring program. And one of those transects was specifically established at this dock, as that owner had concerns as to how the dredging might impact their property. And so we have great data as to what's been happening out there. And you know, most of the concern along the Katuitt shoreline through that permitting process had been about increased erosion rates, you know, as the tip of Sampson's was trimmed back, were they opening themselves up to more erosion, was probably the primary concern from abutting properties in that process. There had been historically erosion along the Katuitt shoreline, and that was increasing as Sampson's moved towards it. And so, you know, a lot of those transects were set up to confirm that the amount of erosion would not increase, which was the kind of anticipated result of opening up that channel, helped to reduce the velocity flows, helped to stop direct the flow of water straight into that Katuitt shoreline cross street. I don't think that anyone necessarily anticipated going from erosional to accretional, if that's the word, and certainly not to the extent that they've been experiencing at this dock. So, you know, one of the discussion points that we had with the sustainable coastal solutions was about the potential of maintenance dredging or dredging around this dock as an alternative. And we did provide an image of what a dredge footprint might look like around this dock. The concern is that, and that was back on page 2, I think, it's shown with like a red dotted line. The concern as for the applicants is, you know, based on the rate of accretion, you know, this is a dredge footprint that would probably need to be maintained annually, if not more. You know, this is kind of a long shore dredging footprint as opposed to a channel, so it's going to just instantly want to start filling in from the edges naturally, and then, you know, on top of that, the amount of accretion that we're been seeing here over the last years, this is going to be very difficult to maintain, and significant costs, and annually at least, to try to keep that slip open, and that kind of perpendicular dredge footprint. So, you know, for those sort of reasons, it's not the applicant's preferred method moving forward. Certainly always open to discussions, but we did, you know, kind of continue our review about the Katuitt shoreline, and maybe we have some more information that would help see towards you know, what had originally been proposed. So, in, you know, a couple of other things that, you know, we thought was good to remind ourselves of and everyone else. You know, we see what's out there today, but we maybe lose track of what had been out there, you know, not too long ago. And on page 3, there's an aerial from 1968 of what that groin by this pier used to look like. And it was significantly longer, about 107, 108 feet. And this pier was originally proposed to be built on top of that, which is on the next page, longer than what is existing today. And I wasn't fully involved in 2000-ish when the construction had began, but, you know, the erosion was so much on that shoreline that the groin had started to fall off, and so they cut back the amount of pier that they were going to build at that time. So, you know, historically 60s and historically even through 2000, there was significantly more structure out there than exists today. Flipping through our next pages, we've just sort of provided some of the aerial photographs. We weren't able to flip through it together the last time, but we have a 2001 aerial.
Excuse me, could you make them, could anybody make them bigger for us?
Thank you.
Hold on, give me a second.
Over in the left corner, Brian, there's a magnifying glass. Not doing anything.
I don't know if I can, Mr. Egan.
Thanks for trying. I appreciate it. I have the hand up
What
here,
if you
but
go up to, what if you go up to view in the upper left-hand corner? You can go zoom, like zoom in. I guess that
There we
doesn't do
go.
it.
Yep,
Okay.
yep. Does that help?
Great.
Yeah.
That help?
Much better.
Okay.
that's a great
Oh, there you
improvement.
go.
Thank you.
So that's the 2001 aerial, you know, basically right around when that pier had originally been constructed. One thing that's helpful to note as we scroll through the aerials is you can see around Sampson's Island kind of a white line, which is pretty consistent on the 2001 aerial of where the shoreline has been. And as we start to scroll down, that GIS outline of Sampson stays, but you start to see the island shifting towards the south.
Can you point to where that property is located in reference to the tip of the island as it changes?
So
Because you're talking
that's-
about a 60-foot pier before.
that's the pier right there that his
Okay.
is on. So this is 2009. And then continuing down is 2014. And this is sort of an interesting transition between those two because this is still long before any of the dredging, but you can see that the island has begun to shift significantly more southerly than westerly. In fact, the kind of closest to the Katuitt shoreline that Sampson's got was around that 2009 aerial. And, you know, probably because it became so pinched, the velocities increased, it started taking the tip off it on those outgoing tides and shifting it southerly. And then the next picture is 2000. So that is around the end of the 3-year, you know, dredging process of the entrance channel.
John, as it started to increase the growing of the tip and it started to scour the previous, you can see the sand coming off and going south. What happened to your client's property? Were they losing any at that time, or were they still growing?
Pre-dredging, they were, and there is some figures later on in this, sorry. Pre-dredging from 2011 to 2018, that shoreline in that area on either side of the pier was showing erosion at a rate of 0 to 1 foot a year. So it was erosional prior to the dredging.
Okay.
And so as we sort of continue to scroll down, there's an image that's, you know, kind of taken from the monitoring that they've been doing, and you can see all the various shorelines of Sampson's Island overlaid on top of each other. essentially what we just scrolled through in those aerials, but even more information to see all the different years of what's been happening there. And then on the next page, we start to get into, answering your questions about what was happening to each of the shorelines before. So the colors indicate how much the shoreline was changing from 2011 to 2018 pre-dredging. And again, right where the cursor is pretty much the dock. And so those green lines show that erosional rate of 0 to 1 foot per year. Pretty stable, a little bit of erosion on ours. And then the next page shows that same thing, but from 2018 to 2022. And that shoreline change has gone from 0 to -1 feet per year to accreting at 2 to 4 feet per year. So a pretty substantial change happened along that shoreline, as we sort of had outlined in our narrative, and we showed the sort of the prior mean high and current mean high on our plans. So again, this is just sort of a summary image of what had been shown in those aerials and the additional data that they were collecting, actual transects and shoreline surveys. I think that the summary of this information would be on the next page of, that 2020 aerial is pretty, a good indication of what this area looked like post-dredging. And, it's our understanding that the town is trying to implement a harbor-wide dredging program, and that this area would be included in that, as with all of the channels in 3 bays. And I think it's maybe a townwide permit that they're pursuing. But when we look at that post-dredge, and so if they were to continue to maintain it, this would be what the conditions would be. And you can see that the pier actually isn't the pinch point of this entrance. The jetty or groin to the south of our property is actually closer to Sampson's Island than our pier by 20-30 feet. So my take on that would be that if the town maintains this, even if this pier went out that 20-30 feet, it still wouldn't be any worse than the jetty located to our south. And then you could say, well, what if the town doesn't maintain it? What happens in the years or in between? On the next page, we do sort of a similar distance thing back from 2009. Again, that was sort of the closest, most westerly that Sampson's got before naturally it started migrating south. Again, our pier isn't the pinch point. It's a groin located to the north of us. So we're shorter than that by some 50 feet. The other thing that I would point out, this past summer, as we were studying this area and knowing that there was a problem with this pier, the property owners, we did suggest to them that they, because I be honest, I haven't been out of that cut in a couple of years, but they went down on a couple of Saturdays to watch, because there is a mooring that's located 100 feet off of their dock. Their mooring is located 100 feet off of their dock. And so they went down there to watch to see, is anybody coming inside of the mooring? And they indicated that wasn't, the traveled way, that the channel that the people are using is easterly of that mooring. So, even I think in the current conditions, people aren't traveling by the tip of this dock. And so, there's a problem. We're trying to come up with a solution. I think that, I hope that this is some additional information that can maybe, give a broader picture of what has happened out there historically, what's been happening, what might happen in the future. And that with that information, hopefully we can see that this pier isn't really the pinch point at all of this system. And I also point out that, this is no better or worse than many of the other points in this harbor. Of the West Bay entrance channel is narrower, Superior River is narrower, Eel River is narrower, the boatyards are narrower. The Katuitt Narrows is similar. So it's, we hope that we can come up with a solution so that these people can get back to using their pier at some point in the near future. So that's a summary of what we've been able to come up with. And I'd be happy to answer any questions or see where we can go with this.
Okay, thank you. Input from the harbor master. So position of the harbor master.
Thanks, John, for your presentation. Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that Sampson's Island and at the Katuitt Bay Cut has changed significantly over time, one way or another, right? And who's to say that it's not going to change again one way or another? Yes, we have maintained it recently. Not sure that we're going to be able to do that in the future. I can't speak to that at this point. I would say that I would like to maintain the Sampson's Island location, although currently through the comprehensive dredge plan, we're looking to dredge out basically the Katuitt Bay entrance channel, not the actual Sampson's Island, the channel itself that's in dire need of dredging. That's what we're working on right now. As you can see, and you kind of stated, there is either accretion in this location and some showing that's occurred, but it's gone both ways, right? I mean, some years the sand has came in, and some years, it's built up, right?
So yeah, pre-channel dredging, it was going away, and post-channel dredging, it's been building up.
Yeah. So, I mean, at this point, I'm not an engineer. It looks like you did a lot of work on this. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen in this location. All I can say is it looks like there's been a lot of movement. The sand has built up here and been taken away. So, I mean, this looks like there's movement both ways. I mean, at this point, my job is to protect navigation. I understand that you're saying the channel is further away here, but we don't know what's going to happen with the end of Katuitt. We don't know if it's going to build up again. We don't know if we're going to lose more of the channel. I think individuals, just like the town, need to take a look at their parcels and maintain their docks rather than extend them further out into the water. That's my personal opinion, though. So that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Input from board members. Peter?
Oh, that as a lifelong boater, I can tell you that the sands are ever changing, and you cannot predict reliably where they're going to go. This is a real tough one, because adding to the pier, I don't know what that's going to do 5 or 10 years from now. You don't know what the west end of Sampson's Island is going to look like. I just have a real hard time trying to envision this. Every time I go over there with my boat, it's different. I'm sort of stuck in neutral gear here.
Okay, thank you, Greg.
The study is very interesting, and I really think it supports sort of all of our anecdotal observations and sort of clarifies scientifically what we all see firsthand there. So I was very interested in this, and basically, it's the unexpected consequences really of dredging, and I'm aware personally of similar changes in a lot of other areas within 3 bays, throughout 3 bays, but I guess that's a discussion for another time. We can't make decisions for the future. We can make them sort of like, or recommendations based for the time right now. I'd be in favor of lengthening the pier because it's not an impediment currently. I don't know if we could be in favor of lengthening the pier, but saying that's don't come back again to lengthen it if accretion comes in. But it's really a consequence of the dredging, and I don't see it as an impediment. So I'd be in favor of the proposal if we're even allowed to put a modifier on there.
Okay, thank you. Todd?
I guess at this point, I mean, it's a really tough choke point, and we use that channel quite a bit. And although I subscribe to the idea that that point has certainly moved south, I still have trouble with extending that pier out 25 feet. I'd certainly be more amenable to, you know, is there a possibility of reconfiguring that pier and putting a horizontal float so the landowner can have different access, maybe not as much access, but it's a pretty big pier and there's a lot of spots there, and maybe there's a way they could reconfigure that and put something that's perpendicular and afloat and put that boat on it. I just, if it continues on that the trend that you've demonstrated, somebody is going to be back here again having a very, very similar conversation. And I'm concerned about the precedent that we're setting by extending a pier that dramatically out into, you know, some of the only deep water in that area. And the trend is that it's all getting shoaled up. So I've got a concern. I don't want to necessarily say no, but I'd love to look at some different options that it might compromise maybe the size and usefulness of the pier, but it might get the property owner at least to be able to use a larger boat on that particular setup.
Okay, thank you. And Gary?
Yeah, I know it changes so much there that I really kind of echo what Brian was saying, but also if there's an alternative of maybe a temporary float. But really the property owner probably should bear the cost of maintaining that shoreline at this point. Yeah, I can't see extending that dock way out much further than that at this point, just because of the shifting sands.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. For John, I mean, we got this, basically the information at a little after 3 today. So I would suggest, and if you are agreeable, that we continue this to next month. Let us kind of digest what, has gone on here through, the past 20 something years. Look at this and kind of get a better feel. I think the board, we all have some reservations about it, but we want to, to help them, the folks as well. So if you're agreeable, can we put this, just take no action on it this month, continue it to next month. Let us review everything you have submitted. And I'm glad you did submit it, because this is, shows really what is happening down here, how dynamic the shoreline can be. And, let the harbor master and the town folks too take a look. And is this a possibility as far as a dredging project? Could it be incorporated in it? Is it still that this dock has a lift? Is that what the problem is too?
Yes, it's I think at this point they're mentally prepared that the dock actually has 3 lifts. It's the larger boat on the south side and then a whaler
Right.
on the north side. They're not even sure that the whaler will be operable this summer, as it's continued to change out there.
Okay, all right.
We could certainly do that. I'm certainly, I understand it came in late, but happy to let you have time to digest it. Maybe gives us an opportunity to talk to the harbor master staff in between the meetings. And if any of you have comments, questions that you want to share to them to be circled back, that we can try to be prepared to answer better. I would just try to highlight that, you know, I think that the looking at either extreme of this is important, and it's why we included it of, okay, if the town does nothing ever with that channel again, and it goes back to 2009, Mother Nature just reverts itself to where it had been and goes back to 2009 and then starts shifting south again. It still was never getting closer to us than the jetties to our north. So, you know, I hope you'd really focus in on that last figure of, you know, I understand the uncertainty of what's happening with the shoreline, but it would seem that it's either going to be maintained or it's not going to be maintained. It's going to go back to where it was, in which case this wasn't.
You'll be asking to lengthen the dock, but back up to the land as opposed to the water when it all scours
That's
out.
true. That's true. I mean, if this tip group grows again for the next 20 years and we erode back out and we didn't need any of this, then that would be fantastic. But in the meantime,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this one I think is, you know, I think it would be, I think we'll all be well served to just pause on this, take a look at it, ask some more questions. If there is, you know, since the dredging, you know, the monitoring that's been going on, have things start to grow? In what direction? You know, from a lot of the aerials, the most recent aerials, it looks like a lot of sand is spilling off the end of Sampson's and coming south into the channel there. And, you know, how is that affecting things? So.
And do you have anything more current than 2020?
I don't have a more current aerial. I will look into whether there's any more of the Katuitt shoreline monitoring post 2020 information that we could put onto this. They did send us a bunch of text files with survey points that they've been collecting. I don't know what the latest year of that was. Well, and our plan showed well, you don't see it because it's off the screen, so that doesn't help. But we did locate the tip when we were doing the soundings, etc., in September of 2022. So we have a pretty good point there, and so we can make sure that an image showing that is available, and whether or not there's any other points out there that we could get our hands on.
That would certainly be helpful. This image is actually pretty interesting to look at. And I'm not looking or suggesting the homeowner incur any further costs, but if the availability was out there and somewhat convenient, you know, we've had an applicant in the past place a marker at the furthest point of the proposed structure.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people on this board are going to be out there boating. It might be an interesting visual.
I'm sure they'd be amenable to that.
I think you mentioned that they have a mooring also.
I believe that's probably their boat right there.
Okay, so What
I actually,
vessel, what vessel is that and what size is that? Is that, if it is theirs, is that the one that you're trying to get to the dock versus having on a mooring?
So that
can I
is,
just, oh, can you guys
this
hear
is
me?
one of the property owners, I
Let's
guess,
see.
has joined into the meeting.
Oh. Can you
Okay,
hear
go
me
ahead.
or see me? Sorry.
Yes,
Oh,
we
hi.
can see you, Emily.
Next to you. Can you
Hi.
state your name?
I'm one of the owners of the property, and I just did want to clarify that because it seemed to be a little bit unclear from John's um,
Okay.
image,
the
but
record,
that is the boat at the mooring.
Okay.
That
for the
is a
record, could you please
37-foot
identify
boat.
yourself?
Can you state your name?
Emily, can you state your name for the record?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. My name is Emily Leventhal.
Okay, thank you.
So that is the boat on the mooring. It's a 37-foot boat. It used to go into the lift on the south side. That lift is inoperable now, or it's outbound. But as you can see, the dock that we're proposing would not nearly go out as far as the boat is moored. They've actually now added we have a second boat moored out there. We have seen nobody go between the boat and the dock.
So ma'am, can you clarify, you have 3 boats on the dock and 2 moorings?
We have 3 boats on, we used to have 3 boats on the dock, a Katuitt skiff. That is the one that would be closest to the beach on the northbound side. The skiff lift is fully on the beach now. There's no water at high tide under it. The whaler lift is the only one that's been operable, but as of last summer, it by mid-tide, it was inoperable. We could not get the whaler into the water.
Okay, what size whaler is that?
Believe it's 17 feet, but I am not, I don't have that information off the top of my head.
Okay,
I mean, it does not need much water.
And will they float without the lift? I mean, the lift has a reasonable draft to it. So would the vessels float without a lift?
Well, the skiffs would not. I understand what you're saying. I do not know if the whaler if it could go all the way in there to get in and out of the dock.
And
The end of the dock is deeper. The other parts of the dock are not as deep.
I was gonna say the bow of the 30 whatever foot Huckins is +3 right now. So it would not, and even, low tide is like mid boat, so it would not float.
okay, and I trust that the reason for all the lifts are because of the waves and the boats getting slammed against the dock. If they were just docked like any other spot, right? Is that the reason for the lifts?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I think if we can continue this to the next meeting, we'll take a look at all the documents submitted by Mr. O'Day. And hopefully we can come up with some other information, some other ideas possibly. Maybe the other dimensions as to how far out everything really needs to come at the max or the minimum. And I think we should maybe address it then. So anybody else feeling on that?
May I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Peter.
If the dock is extended 25 feet, how much water would be under the lift at low tide?
Under the
My
Wow.
question is, what do you gain by moving it 25 feet? Do you gain a foot under the lift? Do you gain 2 feet under the lift? What's the gain?
Great question, Peter.
So the cradle isn't obviously at the tip of the boat, but I can tell you both. So the bow, the tip of the bow today is +3. So bone dry all day, every day. And if we were approved to slide it out, it would go to -2.
Go to what?
Right, to a -2. 2 feet deep.
So you'd, in theory, gain 5 feet going out 25 feet.
Yes, I think that's.
And that's the measurement on the bow, correct?
That's the measurement on the bow.
Okay,
And so the lift brace or whatever, so that's, at your third of the way down the boat today, that's at a +1, and it would go to like -5. It falls off pretty fast there, so it does get deeper as we go further out.
sure. Okay,
We did try to kind of set ourselves at reasonably the minimum that could continue to operate.
okay. Any
Mike-
other comment?
Mike, if I can just tell you what I'm thinking, as when the lift was installed, and I don't know how many years ago the lift was installed, that solved the problem. But since then, the shoreline has changed, as has the problem. And so there might be a different solution other than extending the pier 25, leaving the boat on the mooring and putting it on the mooring regularly, and tying it up to the end when you can, and putting it on the mooring when you can. As things change, you have to sort of bend with it. I don't know.
Okay. For John O'Day, were there conservation restrictions on the use of the lift?
It is associated with that boat. It's always been the same. It's at that dock for the 20 years it's been there.
Okay.
At least on the north side. I think that the lifts on the south side were added after the fact. I think the most recent permit was like 2009, but it was always for this boat.
Okay.
One last
right,
question.
Yes,
One last
go ahead.
question. At the end of the existing dock, what is how much water is at that point at the end of the dock?
7 feet. 7 feet deep.
Really?
If you can dive off the beach on both, it's the same as on Sampson's, right? I mean, you can dive off the beach. It's just that face of the beach has been growing out that 4 feet a year and has killed our bows.
7 feet. Thank you.
Okay, anything further? All right, I'll propose that we continue this to next month. Take a look at all of the information that's been submitted and come up with either a recommendation, other amendments to it, or any further discussion. So how's that for everybody else to continue this to our May meeting?
It's okay with me.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you,
Is that all
everybody.
right with, John, is that okay with you? We'll take everything that you've submitted under advisement. We'll look at it and bring this back up again next meeting.
And as I said, if any thoughts come up in the meantime, we're open to receiving them.
Yep, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, go back to the agenda. Mooring, I'm sorry. Robert C. Howard, trustee for 129 Salton Point Road in Barnstable, map 280, parcel 22. The applicant proposes limited repair to an existing stone revetment. Do we have anybody to speak to this?
I don't think we have an engineer present.
Okay. And
Brian,
Do we
can you
have-
pull up that image? Can you share that image?
Can you see it now or no?
Yeah.
129 Salton Point.
yep, whoop.
Are you seeing purple lines on your screen? Because I don't know for some.
No,
You're not?
I am.
I am,
Yeah, I've seen these purple lines. I don't know what they are. But 129 is right here.
Yeah. yeah, there you go. It's highlighted. Yeah. So
I looked at these plans. It's staying within the same footprint. They're just repairing the wall. I don't have any issues with navigation here.
It doesn't look like anything's close to that.
Yeah, no, it's just some repair of the wall.
Okay, for the board members, everybody okay with this one?
I am.
Okay, so
fine with
Peter in favor, Greg,
yes.
Todd,
Yes.
Gary,
Yep.
and myself. Okay, that one's
Okay,
good. Oh, there's
Are
there's
those the
purple.
lines?
Yeah, it's
That's
tough.
me.
Yeah, I don't know how it's happening.
I don't either. I
Did you
just,
make a
I
smiley
drew the
face or
smiley
what?
face.
Yes.
I
Sorry
think
about
you've been-
that.
I
I don't
think
know
you've
how
been
to-
hacked.
Click on it and delete.
I won't even let me click on it. It's
I
interesting.
didn't think I would have, oh, hold on.
Oh,
Oh, there it goes. Okay.
Sorry about that. I didn't think I had access to your screen.
Yeah, are you a co-host?
no, he's not co-host. I've never seen that before, but okay.
All right, Todd. Okay, next up, we have mooring appeals. Edgar Magnifico Senior denied mooring transfer request from grandfather to grandson Joseph.
Yeah, so Paul, real quick, our regulations currently do not allow for a transfer between a grandfather and a grandson. I let the individuals, I believe they are present, speak to the matter.
Yes. My name is Ed Montefico. I've had the home in Detroit at 66 School Street since 1980. And I am now 90 years old. And recognize that time is shorter than it has been. So I'm interested in seeing that we have that mooring going forward. Normally that would have been my son, who unfortunately died 5 years ago. So it's his son that has been using the boat for several years and is the one that is very adept at boating and is working. He lives in Barnstable as a resident and in our family home there, and will also inherit the home. And he is his business is is there. He's a fly fishing guide through and he also is a knife maker and has done a great deal of boating around the country. We have the boat that I've had there, current boat I've had there, a 39-foot I'm sorry, 29-foot Mako that's been on the mooring since that particular boat since 95. What we want to do is to assuming that this goes through, we would have Joe would have a boat in his name, 24-foot boat that will go on the mooring. That we have now had the, of course, the mooring registered as we do every year on my boat that was there, which we will sell if this goes through, and put the 24-foot boat on there. Joe is a very frequent user of boats, and it's, I think, important, and we'd love to see him be able to continue what has been something that's been going on in our family for many years, and be able to be what would have been his son's right to have that mooring if approved. So what I'm trying to do, and as I'm trying to put everything else in order in my life at this stage, and I would hope that we would be able to do that so that the family can continue with both the house and the boat, the mooring, and particularly for Joe to have, since he is permanent resident of Barnstable County and doing in Barnstable and doing his business both as a fly fishing guide and a night bringer here on the Cape.
Thank you. Sir.
Okay, sir. So for the harbor master, is this in the ropes section?
Yes,
Okay,
Yep.
and it's going to be, it would be going from a 29-foot Mako down to a 24-foot boat. Is that correct?
yes.
Okay, and okay, so my question for the harbor master, so everything is up to date as far as the moorings has been renewed every year?
Yes.
That's correct. Yeah, Edgar renewed the mooring this year. He's currently permitted.
Okay, so basically, the spirit of the regulation is for the father to pass it to the son, and then the son to pass it to his son. And we understand that there's a void now. I'm sorry for your loss, sir. I would be agreeable to make a recommendation that we allow this. I'll throw it to the rest of the board members. Peter?
I agree. I think lacking a chain air in the middle, I think it's only proper that we do that.
Okay, great. Greg?
Without question.
Okay, thank you. Todd?
100%.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes,
Okay, so we're going to recommend to approve this change to transfer the mooring from Edgar to Joseph, a family member.
Yes.
Joseph, call me tomorrow. We'll take care of it, okay?
Thank you so much. I'm Joseph Montepico, by the way.
Yeah,
All right, Joseph, thank you very much. And-
Congratulations.
all of you. Thank you. And
All
thank
right,
you.
you're welcome, sir. Yep.
This is all the work you do to keep our waterways really, over the years that I've lived here, terrific. You ought to be very proud of it.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, next one up is Patrick Robinson. I believe this is the cow yard.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
do you guys have enough that I can jump off and roll on to another Zoom here?
Yes, yeah, we won't, we'll still have a quorum.
I'm sorry to cut you guys short.
Not a problem.
Thanks, Todd.
Next up, Patrick Robinson in the cow yard. Mooring number 8 missed the mooring deadline. Has been permitted since 2002.
I don't see Mr. Robinson present.
Okay. Jay, do you have any information on this one?
I know he's never missed before. I'm not sure why he didn't attend the meeting tonight, but if we could postpone it to the next meeting, I'll get in contact with him, make sure that he attends.
Sure, he or his representative. That'd be fine. So we'll continue that one on. Next one is Alfred Cortinas, another one at Ropes, missed mooring deadline permitted since 2021.
So this is a new permit holder. I told him I would represent him tonight. He's a little bit of an older gentleman. He was out of the country for mooring renewal season, and he had a very difficult time with our online process, and he was unable to meet the deadline. He got home, he opened up his mail, he sent a check immediately. Again, he's a new permit holder, so he just wasn't sure about the online process, and we have had people struggle with that in the past. So I would ask the committee to give him his one strike rule and reinstate him.
All right, thank you. Peter,
Agreed, yes.
okay, Greg,
Yes.
and Gary,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. Okay, that one's reinstated.
Thank you.
Old business mooring regulations.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a workshop for mooring regulations. Actually want to set a date tonight, but for after the summer. We've been extremely busy. We need a few months to actually dive into the regulations and propose some possible changes. I think we'll also take a look at the current mooring field descriptions as well as size parameters that we have in place. Thinking end of September. How does that work for? I know it's quite a ways out, but it gives us a little time to actually look at some of the regulations and then meet together and have a workshop on it.
Sure, that sounds good. You want to pick a date in September?
You know, what I was thinking was we could do a workshop before the Waterways Committee meeting, so it's the same night, and really
Sure.
have it maybe have it start at like 6 o'clock or 6:30, in fact, and we'll propose some changes and then maybe follow back up on it in the next Waterways Committee meeting.
That works for me.
So I was thinking 6:30 on September the 26th.
Yep.
So it'd be a half hour early. We'd present some of the changes, get right to the point with what we're proposing, have a brief discussion on it, and then we can follow up at the next Waterways Committee meeting, or even a few if we need to discuss them. Does that
All
work?
right.
So is that workshop going to take the place of the Waterways Committee meeting on the 26th?
No, it'd just be
No.
before it.
Oh, all right.
So we do the workshop and then we'd roll right into, we'd end it
Okay.
and then we'd roll right into the Waterways Committee meeting. That way you're not really blocking up too nice.
Okay, got it.
All right. So we will put that down. So 6:30 p.m., September the 26th workshop, which would be a half an hour before the regularly scheduled Waterways meeting. Okay. Marina fees.
So marina fees, same thing. I have pushed the marina fees up the chain here, waiting to hear back. My plan is to talk about this a little bit earlier than September. So I'm gonna make a proposal within the next few months to update the marina fees for the town of Barnstable marinas. Right now, we're looking at a flat fee across the board for residents, a flat fee for non-residents, and then potentially for commercial individuals. Right now, our fee structure, I'm not sure if you're all aware of it, is a little bit different. Each marina has a different fee structure. Some charge per slip, some charge per foot. Some of the marinas like Barnstable Harbor have a per foot charge in some locations and a per slip charge in some locations within the same marina. It's quite difficult to manage. Someone that may have a 21-foot boat on the east side might pay a different price than someone that has a 21-foot boat on the west side. Realistically, to me, that doesn't make sense. We're in the same marina. There should be a flat fee across the board for everybody, but I'm open to having a discussion about it. I'm going to come forward with a proposed fee. Again, we can talk about it in the in a Waterways Committee meeting. And then if the committee would like, we could set up a few separate meetings where we could discuss each marina and invite the slip holders to the marina, to the Waterways Committee meeting to talk about it before we move forward with it. I really like to get the committee members involved and the slip holders involved to explain why I'm doing it. I'm not just changing fees to change fees. I'd just like to, put it out there so everyone can voice their opinion.
That sounds like a good idea.
Yep.
Okay, and then the mooring wait list, the lottery drawing.
Yeah, I'll let Jay speak to this. We just had the lottery drawn today.
Yep, lottery drawing was this morning. We did 5 mooring fields, East Bay, West Bay, Timms Cove, Fish Hills, and Katuitt Bay Shores. 25 people were selected for each mooring field. We had a lot of lucky winners. With the exception of Fish Hills, we chose 15 for that location. It's the second mooring waitlist lottery I've done in the past year. It was a huge success. People had a good experience with the online process, and I got my numbers back up. We've been offering so many moorings that the list got very, very low, and the people that were left on them wouldn't take a mooring. Everyone was passing. So we're going to have some good movement this year, and the people who won the lottery are extremely lucky because, instead of this 10, 15-year wait, they're going to get a mooring in the next year or two. I'm going to be making phone calls tomorrow, actually, for some of these locations. So we were excited about that, and it turned out well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, that sounds really good to the movement of the moorings. We're always talking about it, and it is probably one of the hottest topics through the years on the Waterways Committee is how do we keep things moving? How do we keep turning them over and not, putting someone's name on a list and being told you have to sit there for 40 years before you get a mooring. Okay, thank you. New business, School Street Town Way to Water discussion.
Yeah, so currently the School Street dock has a small parcel, very small bulkhead that's located at the end of School Street near it's Dockside now, near Dockside Marina. Excuse me while I get to the parcel. It's going to take me a moment here. So there's a very small bulkhead that's located at
Right.
That's a town way to water. It's underutilized from the public. There is one commercial individual that utilizes it quite frequently, although there's posted signage down there that it's not for commercial usage, it's for recreational usage. What I would like to do, what I would propose to the Waterways Committee is we've changed the usage of this dock here. Realistically, it's become more of law enforcement, fire in the fire department's space to tie up their vessels, and it's needed. What we're doing is we're moving the vessels all forward, limiting the amount of space we have between the vessels and scrunching them in so people can still have access to this very small parcel or bulkhead, shall I say. Now we have a number of other bulkheads here. We have the Gary Brown boat ramp, or it's also called the Lewis Bay boat ramp. The ramp itself, as well as the bulkhead and the floating dock. We have the end of Pleasant Street, which is right here as a town way to water. We have Bismore Park Marina, which has an offload zone, which is a town way to water. And then not to mention the locations we have at Hills. So we have quite a few here. This one, like I said, is not frequently used. I think in all my time here, I've really only seen that one commercial individual access this location. I'm sure Peter can speak to some other usage here because it's changed over time. But right now, this primary dock at School Street is a law enforcement dock. And it does have a few fire boats there, and I'd like to keep it like that. So my recommendation is would be to remove this small town way to water bulkhead here from the townway to water parcel, make a recommendation to the town manager, and I'd like the waterway support before I do so.
Okay, thank you. As I recall, that is very limited, because if you have that line of the street coming down, I think there's like a vehicle parked in the middle of the line. Yeah. So like on a riparian right type of thing. I remember historically, there used to be a big davit there, and Dockside wanted to use that. And I think there was some stipulations that the public could use that, but that's since been removed. So it is very limited, and I would guess what, 10, 12, 15 feet at the most?
I want to say it's 15 feet. I think I have a tool here. I think it's about 15 feet,
Okay,
roughly, maybe a little more. Oh, no, 9,
yeah. Yeah, I
So-
remember it. Yeah, 12.
12. It's tough to tell with this purple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it is just basically the beam of a boat. And you'd like to just whatever is there for the,
Yeah, I'd
public
like to
safety.
really focus on public safety, law enforcement, the fire department, and kind of have this dock for
Just-
that purpose only.
okay, and back them up a little bit more, because presently, or in the height of the summer season, are there 4 vessels?
I currently have 3, but not to say we couldn't put 4 there. I've seen the environmental police and state police come in here and request dockage and come in there. But
Yeah.
I get a lot of questions, especially from certain individuals that do use it. Right now, there's one saying, well, you can't block the access. You need to leave it open. It's a town way to water. And although it is listed as a town way to water, I think by changing the usage and removing it from being a town way to water, we can focus more on this being public safety dock, and then directing them to different locations that are in Hyannis and Harbor.
Right, and in the past, there were some boats trying to offload there, but it was very limited. And as you pointed out, the Gary Brown boat ramp and that whole thing was not built at that time. So there's certainly a lot more area that boats can pull in and offload over there. Okay,
Yeah, I mean, depending if they're offloading individuals or catch right now, if they're offloading catch, they should be offloading at Bismarck Park Marina, which is our offload facility.
okay. Well, I would go along with a recommendation by the harbor master to change that usage. Peter?
Okay, I'm okay with it.
Okay, Greg?
I had a question. So is there parking that's defined with that area, or is it all
No.
generically?
Not really. There's a few parking spots here. I don't know the details about the parking. I want to say,
Those are Steamship Authority.
yeah.
Yeah,
So there's one here that we use for public safety vehicles,
Yeah.
and there's a handicap parking spot, but I can't speak to the parking. I don't believe that there's any parking in this location that's managed by the town, though.
Correct.
So even if it is a public access, there's no place to park the cars, I'm assuming.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, I'm in favor of the harbor master's request.
Okay, and Gary?
I agree.
Okay. All right, thank you. We're positive on that. And let me go back to the agenda. School Street, Pleasant Street dock bid and potential new offload location.
So Pleasant Street Dock has been in a monthly contract with 2 vessels for years now, and it is a month-to-month contract. It was previously managed by Asset Management under the town of Barnstable. When I came on board as harbor master, I kind of focused on this area because I thought that the harbor master should manage the end of Pleasant Street Dock. After discussion with town officials, we are going to go out to bid at this parcel. Still to be 2 slips, but we are going to go out to bid sometime within the next month to allow this dock to be bidded on by the commercial fishing industry, to open and fair and equal to all. That way individuals have a chance to bid on the dockage. It is part of a long-term plan. Whether or not it's going to stay a commercial fishing dock here like this is to be determined. It's currently part of our economic seaport development grant that we have going, and design of Hyannis and Inner Harbor, Pleasant Street Dock, Gateway, and Bismore are all part of that design. But I'd like to put it out for a yearly bid. A new potential offload location, which is currently a town way to water, and I've seen individuals use over the course of my career to offload catch, not necessarily cages, but like lobster fishing and a few other smaller fishing vessels that came in here and offloaded catch. I'm okay with it, but I think we need to establish some parameters around it, some guidelines like Bismore, and charge a fee for the usage of the facility. So I'd like to put some restrictions on it. It would be for smaller commercial vessels to offload, but similar to what we do at Bismore Park, which allows vessels up to 75 feet to offload, we could set some parameters around smaller commercial fishing vessels, let's say 35 feet or under, that have another location they could offload, back a truck up to, and use to offload catch as well. So there's kind of two things here. I wanted to communicate that we are going to go out to bid with the end of Pleasant Street for the 2 slips. They are rafting slips. And then the second thing would be to create a new offload zone for smaller fishing vessels with some restrictions, not dropping cages for this parcel here.
Okay, presently the Pleasant Street dock, are there any restrictions on it right now? Similar to the other town docks, attended vessels, I know boats will park for the restaurant there. What do we?
Yeah, so realistically, again, this parcel was managed by asset management. There were 2 short-term slip contracts. They were month to month on a month-to-month basis. The Jenna Lee and Rachel Lee are currently at this location. As far as access goes to Baxter's, we allow people to tie up here, go get something to eat. That we have no issues with that. I'd like to still allow people to do that. I think it's good for the Hyannis Inner Harbor, but I don't believe there's any restrictions or regulations put in place, to the best of my knowledge, for offloading catch at this location. I just think it's listed as a town way to water.
Okay, so yours would be incorporated then with restriction and size for vessels for offloading.
Yeah, I would just give some of the commercial fishing industry another location to offload some of the smaller vessels that come in, with some regulations and a fee. That way we are paying for the facility that we're maintaining. I think in the long run, we may have to replace either the fixed pier or the bulkhead at this facility. And I think that we need to take a look at the revenue we're getting so we can maintain the parcel.
Okay.
Brian, I have a question. How would that be managed so that there wouldn't be a conflict between offloading commercial catch and people tying up to go to Baxter's?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I haven't really figured that out, but currently it's not really managed at all. So
Yeah.
I think that's something we need to discuss internally, whether we set some time limits or time restrictions around the offloading at this parcel. I don't really know.
I could see it getting a little ugly if you come in with a catch of lobster or whatever you've got, and there are a bunch of boats tied up there because the people are having lunch or dinner at Baxter's. I could see it getting a little ugly. So I'd like to avoid that if we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if an individual paid the same fee to use Bismore Park offload as they did this smaller parcel, they'd have either option to go. Obviously, they'd have to be that smaller vessel, so that if this was currently being used by recreational boats, they could go over to Bismore Park. I think that's an option, as well as maybe setting some time restrictions on it and posting it there for the public as well as the commercial usage.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. We have correspondence hearing for a renewal of aquaculture license, site number 41 in Barnstable Harbor for Hyon Hayes, 37 Anthony Drive in Hyannis for a period of 10 years. That's just a matter of notification. And any problems with the Harbor Master's Department on that?
No, that's just notification.
Yep, okay, thank you. Harbor Master report?
So Jay and I and staff finished placing the ATONs out in the town of Barnstable this morning. On the north side in Barnstable Harbor, we did put the stakes out. We do have a few more swim buoys to put out, but as far as the ATONs, they've all been placed. There may be some movement here and there. When they go in the water, sometimes they moved due to them not setting correctly, or just changes in shoaling, and then possibly being placed in other locations that they weren't previously. But we tried to adapt, increase mushroom size on some of them. So if you guys see something, say something. Make sure that we're aware, even if it's a quick email or phone call to me, so we can get out there and adjust it. We don't want people running the ground. But we worked hard to get everything out there in a timely manner. And, we're going to set the rest of the swim buoys up for recreation, as well as some of the danger buoys that we have throughout the rest of May. Hopefully we'll be done before Memorial Day. And other than that, it's starting to look like the season's starting here. It's getting quite busy. The phone's ringing. The lottery just went off. We're ramping up with staff. Today we did 20 vessel safety checks at the Gary Brown boat ramp. The squid are in, and a lot of people are using the Gary Brown boat ramp to get out there. In fact, they're all out there right now in Nantucket Sound with their lights on. So we had staff go down there, and we partnered with the Barnstable Police Department, and we did approximately 20 vessel safety checks from 2 o'clock to 6 o'clock this afternoon, which I think is great. You're going to see that being done at boat ramps throughout Barnstable for the remainder of the season. They're going to be sporadic. They may be 5 in the morning, 5 in the afternoon, but our staff will be out there doing vessel safety checks. So be aware of that. And that's all I got right now.
Great, thank you. And yes, the season will be upon us. Okay, our next meeting is May the 23rd. And anybody else have anything before we adjourn? Hearing none.
Move we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Frost. Thank you. So everybody have a nice evening, and we will see everybody on May the 23rd. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Paul. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.